Hi everybody, Steve, advisor, board member, and former chief HR officer. And today's quick take is going to be on centralization. This might be one that's more interesting for those of you in big organizations. And in times like the ones that we are in, it might be that some companies and organizations are thinking about doing more of it. And when things get scary and there's a lot of change in the air, people want to pull in the reins sometimes. Let's talk about what it is and maybe a mindset for you as a leader to have when it's being discussed. So centralization means in a lot of ways having direct control from a headquarters. It means less managers distributed throughout the system and less layers and more straight up to a single decision maker. That's an oversimplification. But it allows efficiency, it allows consistency, and a lot of times the people that are going after centralization, they're trying to eliminate what they may see as chaos. And I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt here. I lived through a lot of this in my corporate career and saw a lot of attempts to centralize things with mixed outcomes. So as a leader, when this comes up and people are starting to talk about, well, we're only going to have one version of this and it's going to go all the way to the top, here's a good 2 or 3 mindsets to keep in mind for you to engage in the discussion with. Number one, always have a bias towards autonomy. Autonomy means ownership, and ultimately ownership means accountability. Of course, accountability leads to the next thing to keep in mind. Accountability only works if we're holding people accountable. And a lot of times the reason somebody is interested in pursuing centralization is because there's a lot of dispersed units or departments that are unaccountable, getting different results, a lot of them not so great. So a lot of times our desire to be centralized has something to do with a lack of accountability. And then finally, this is the biggest one to keep in mind in any discussion on org structure and possible centralization. There needs to be a relentless focus on outcomes and who is doing it best, why are they doing it best, and how do the rest of us imitate them. And a lot of times that doesn't take an org chart change. It just takes common sense and accountability, as formerly stated. Next, big point. If the org chart is the first place a discussion on a problem starts, it's probably the wrong place to start. The right places are leadership, talent, again, accountability, amount of innovation coming out of a given group. Those sorts of things are what we need to sort. The org chart needs to be secondary. It's really hard for a lot of people to get there, but that's the truth. The org chart's kind of a reflection of how we do things best, and a lot of times it's best to be adjusted after the fact. But when we go in first, and that's where we start, it's pretty easy to assign some ill intentions to whoever's after that org chart and maybe a little empire building. Now, 3 wise people I want to tell you about have talked about this whole issue of centralization that I admire. Number 1, Bob Johansen. He wrote Leaders Make the Future. He talks about, and he's a futurist, and he talks about the nature of change and the nature of the environment we're all in with increasing amounts of chaos, and the fact that distributed leadership in a distributed org chart is the best way to account for a difficult environment like that. Next, a guy named Laurent Frex, who happens to run Nestle, talks about freedom within a framework. That means as much as autonomy as we can give, but the right governance to surround it, regardless of what the function is. Last, Brock Foster, a great CFO I worked with, would always assert very loudly at times that there are limits to scale. Just because you jam everything together doesn't mean it's going to be more efficient and better. A lot of times the bigger something gets, the slower it gets, the more unresponsive it gets, and the more inward looking it gets. So those are a few thoughts on the issues of centralization. Obviously, I'm not a fan, but it has its uses. And I'll put more in my blog. You can go to stevedegnan.com and check that out. Thanks for listening.